I think that's us.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Blaise Ingoglia. Good morning. Blaise Ingoglia, the Chief Financial Officer of the state of Florida. I want to thank you guys for being here. Just start off with some comments about why we're here, what we're doing, and why this is important, I think, to the taxpayers of the state of Florida. A lot of this is resulted from conversations that the governor and I had about property taxes. We have seen a rise in property values with a corresponding rise in property taxes, and what we've seen over the last 5 years, especially post-COVID, we've seen a lot of increases in property tax receipts, resulting in general government growing. And we do not think it is right that taxpayers get to foot the bill for government excesses. So one of the things that we are planning on doing is doing some cursory reviews, some of them a little bit more in depth, looking at a lot of government spending, making sure that they're not paying for things that are not prescribed in law. And in addition, the things that probably could be deemed wasteful. Because there's one thing I know about government, I know this, is that when we start looking at putting a property tax referendum on the ballot in November 26th, local governments, every local government, whether it's going to be a red county or blue county, is going to make every excuse in the book why they cannot cut property taxes. And I know for a fact that there is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in the system, things that governments probably should not be spending money on, that they are basically charging the taxpayers. Now, having said that, local governments love playing games. They say that we're holding the millage rate at the same amount, but when you have rising property taxes holding the millage rate at the same amount, that generates extra income, and that is a tax increase. So when you have rising property values, millage rates theoretically should be going down, or at the very least adopting the rollback rate, which then holds revenues at the same. One of my big things that I am worried about in the state of Florida is home affordability, housing affordability, just the affordability in general in the state of Florida. I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that we do not turn this place into New York or California. So with that, more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have. I have a little time. Yes, sir.
Can you explain the methodology for the numbers that you put out in the letter? You said increasing the revenues by $303 million annually in the county, but looking at the county's numbers, that's overblown. Where's that number coming from?
So the number, I would have to refer that back to Eric Soskin at DOGE, working out of the governor's office. He's the one that's compiling all that information. All that information I think he retrieved directly from county finance reports.
Is your understanding that's coming from what the rollback rate would have been? I mean,
no, I think those are general, I think those are just general receipts that are coming in for government.
What do you say to the folks that say you're just targeting the Democratic counties?
We're not. We've hit Pinellas County, which is a red county. I'm going to be headed to Manatee County after this. I do not care personally, and I don't think the governor does either, if it is a red county or a blue county, because quite frankly, every county has seen an increase in government spending over the last 5 years.
These cities like Jacksonville, who you've sent a letter to saying they are not cooperating, what are those cities like Jacksonville not doing to open the doors to you?
Sure, great question. The first thing that you have to realize is that I have a pretty broad constitutional authority to do these audits, including giving subpoenas to make sure that we get the information. Those are unconditional. It's also in Florida statute that we passed last year that created Florida DOGE. This is not a negotiation with local government. So we've had counties that have asked us to sign non-disclosure agreements for public information. And in the case in Jacksonville, they were asking to sign some sort of technology user agreement. That is not prescribed in law. I don't understand what they think we're going to do with the information or having access to their files, because the access to the files is prescribed in law. There is nothing in Florida's law that says that we actually have to file an agreement with that. All of the auditors, all the employees that are on site are bound by current state law. They're not going to share any information they're not supposed to share, and they are going to make sure that they're taking care of every precaution to make sure information does not get out.
What are some specific examples of waste, fraud,
Well, first, that's what we're here for. We're here to see that because we know that there are some, and we're going to find it, whether it be, we're going to let you know when the report comes out. The report's going to come out in 60 days, and we will lay out what they are. But I will tell you that we just do not pick these locations willy-nilly. It's because people inside government, some elected officials contact us and they tell us, hey, you should be looking at this department, what they did over here when they signed this contract. And when we see that smoke, there's usually fire. So that's why we're on site. Yes, sir.
You just touched on it a little bit, but procedurally from here, you're here today and tomorrow, your team's here today and tomorrow. What happens next? What does the rest of this audit look like, and when can we expect to get whatever your findings are?
Sure, so you're looking at about 3 to 4 days on site, compiling information, the information that we laid out in the audit letter that we sent to local governments. And then they go back to Tallahassee and they sit down with all the auditors and they start pouring all of this information. Some of it will be used, sifted through by AI. They're going to be looking at excessive spending in terms of personnel to see if some lucrative contracts were signed when they probably shouldn't have been. Maybe some comparable contracts in other cities or counties with the same vendor came in at less money. So those are the things that we're looking for. But this is like a cursory review, a high level view of some of the bigger things. Now, I will tell you that regardless of what the DOGE audit comes out with in about 60 days, I can go back in and ask for some more granular detail, and we may do that at some point in the future.
And within the letter, they're all a little bit different, but some of the things you picked out in Orange County, transportation spending on crosswalks and whatnot, how were some of those things selected, or why were some of those things
Because we're getting information to look there. So we're getting information, and if somebody contacts us and says, hey, you should look at this department, we just don't take that as gospel. If we start hearing other people saying you should look at that department, then that's when we start looking.
Can you detail what kind of complaint came in about Orange County or where it came from?
No, where the information that come in is just conversations that we have with people over the phone, and sometimes they tag people on social media saying, hey, you should look at this, and we take all of that into effect. Let me be clear, there are 67 counties, there are untold amount of municipalities, so there's a lot of government entities out there. We're not going to get to all of them, but we're getting to the ones where we think we can have some of the biggest impact on taxpayers and start the argument that we have to reduce property taxes.
Has Orange County been cooperative?
Orange County has been cooperative so far. We hope that they continue to be cooperative. Look, if the people in Orange County, the elected officials, truly care about the taxpayer, they're going to do everything that they can in order to give property tax relief. Because if they care about the constituents first, that's one of the biggest issues on voters' minds. Yes, ma'am.
Which counties asked you to sign NDAs?
Gainesville, City of Gainesville asked for an NDA to be signed, and when I found that out, I think the DOGE team had already agreed to doing that, and I said we are not going to do that again. We are not going to sign any documentation. We are not going to have on-site audits based on their playing field. They're not going to dictate to us how we do that. We, Florida law, Constitution, dictate how that happens.
There have been complaints that this process and others from the state are taking away local governments, taking away the power from local governments to do what people have elected to do. What's your reaction to that?
Are you talking about the home rule argument? Okay, let me, this is what I say about the home rule argument, especially cities. Cities come to the legislature in order to be incorporated to create the city, and then they create the city and they wind up overtaxing, overspending, adding onerous regulations on the people, and then who protects the people? That's where the state comes in. So I don't buy this argument that the state shouldn't get involved in home rule. The people who wanted a home rule come to the state and ask for permission to form that home rule. Who's going to watch for the taxpayers? I tell you who. I am. The governor will.
CFO, the biggest budgets though are fire, police.
Yes.
Are you going to look to make sure, I know you don't like to cut when it comes to that, but are you going to look at those things, those budgets too, to make sure that that's being spent correctly, because maybe that money could be used somewhere?
Yeah, we're going to look at every aspect of spending. Personnel obviously is a big issue. And like you and I have had conversations before, is that the first duty of government is to protect its citizens. So if government was doing what they were supposed to be doing in terms of of zero-based budgeting and starting to see what is absolutely necessary, the first line items that they fund should be fire and police, and then everything else after that. Then you go to essential programs, and then towards the end, what we've seen traditionally from local governments is they wind up adding a lot of fluff and wind up spending things on that they shouldn't be spending on. Yes, ma'am. I will tell you, I am personally looking at, from the CFO's office, irrespective of what DOGE does over the next 6 months, almost all of them. It's just going to be a matter of time when we get around to all of them. Look, some of them may be adversarial, some of them may not be adversarial, but I do know this, is that there are elected officials, whether it is city commissioners, city councilmen, constitutional counties where you have actually commissioners on there. Commissioners. A lot of times what we've seen is that staff will tell them one thing in terms of politically, and then they're turning around and staff is doing something completely opposite. I've seen that firsthand in some of the counties that I represent, and then when we wind up telling them that your county is spending money on X, and the elected officials didn't know that they were spending money on X, it's usually the elected officials get frustrated because they're not being told the complete and honest truth from staff.
Do you plan to expand the DOGE efforts to state government and even the executive office of the governor?
So what we're planning on doing is looking at everything. We have already have something in within state government that continues to look at that. When you look at state government compared to the federal government and local government, we are by far the most fiscally conservative in terms of putting money away and cutting budgets, giving money back to the taxpayer. So what we've seen is the excesses, a lot of the excesses, the ones that people feel on a daily basis, come from local government. So that's where we're concentrating first.
CFO, how did you pick the list? How did you go from 1 to 67?
So a lot of that has to do with the increase year over year in terms of percentage over the last 5 years and dollar amount also.
So Orange County was up there.
It was up there in terms of overall dollar amount, which was taken in by the local government and property taxes. Where Broward was a huge amount on a percentage basis and dollar amount also. So that's why they were number 1 on the list. I'm going to take one last question. I got to get going.
A lot of the cities and counties around here, not necessarily Orange County itself, are actually looking at raising the millage rate this year. A lot of them citing police and fire costs, salaries, and whatnot. What would your message be to those elected officials who are looking at that decision over the next month or two?
Sure. My message would be the voters are going to speak, raise the millage rate, raise taxes, and they'll find themselves out of a job real quick. I got to go, guys. Thank you.
Meet with the mayor?